the other parts that I wanted to show you are up here. So there's menu options along the top, but in services and support, one, we have some web services. So there's some machine readable searching. So there's an API that can take out some of the information from this database and you can put it onto another website. Some of the map serve features that we have are available in that way as well. But this is the data management plan tool that I was talking about. I'm not going to go through it today, but it's a web form that just has spaces for all the things that you might need to think about when you want to write a data management plan for a proposal. So what kind of data, how big is it, what will the format be, where are you going to put it, USAP-DC or somewhere else. You'll log into that with either your ORCID or your Google ID. And the neat thing about that is that it remembers previous management plans that you've written. So if you have a technique that you use and you produce similar data from different places in different projects, all of that thinking and metadata that you've written into one data management plan will be populated over into another. So it helps with writing a series of proposals throughout your career. So you've searched for data, you've gone to services and support, and maybe you've written a data management plan. The next step is that the reviewers loved your proposal and the program manager loved your proposal and it's been funded and you've got a project. So within the first year of the project, it can happen as soon as you hear that it's been officially awarded, or it can happen before that first annual report. You go to the middle button and you register your project. And this, I'm already logged into the site for here. So you need to be logged in for this one so that we can track who it is, who's making it. But you'll find that projects that are in the NSF database already are pre-populated within this web form. So you can scroll down and find yourself. And I have an example of that. I think here, this is one of mine. Things that are in the NSF database will be here already. So the titles there, the personnel are in place, the start and end dates, the abstract that you wrote, you don't need to change that. It's all going to be in place. So it's really handy that a lot of the stuff that gets entered into one database is going to show up in another and save you quite a bit of time and effort. So I'll go back to this one and show you some of the things that you can add that weren't in the other database. This is where you can add your own project website if you want to. This is where you can add deployments that you might be involved in. You can choose just the PDF of your data management plan and upload it here immediately so that people will find out about your project and will know what kind of data to expect. You will need to include some keyword for your location and for your science, what you're measuring, what you're looking at, some prescribed vocabulary keywords, because this helps us put your project into the Antarctic master database. So there's a couple of things that are required and you can go through them there. In order to show up on the map on the homepage that I showed you, you can enter the spatial bounds of your project. And of course, I figured out which ones I'd want to show you because you can fill them in here and you get to check your work. So a map comes up that shows that you've filled in what you expected it to be, because perhaps most of us have run into international dateline problems, and check that box if you've got a big project that spans the dateline. So that'll help the map show up properly when you submit the project. You might already have some publications for this award, and so you can enter them here. You might already have some data sets. Now, the next step that I'm going to show you is how to submit a data set to be archived at the USAP-DC. So at this point, you're submitting data sets that are externally archived. So you'll know what repository they're in. You've got all this information, and you can enter multiple of them at the point that you're making this page. And then you'll submit it to us, gets ingested into the system, and then a curator just goes through and makes sure that everything works properly, that the links work. When we make a page, we'll send you the link to the page and you can check it. And you will have your project page. So for the example that I showed you from the start, this is what a project page can look like. It's got the people, it's got the awards, it's got the data sets. And this is when I really wanted to show you that edit button. You can go back in and you can add additional data sets later if you want to, or extra publications. Another nice thing that these project pages do is that weekly we have an API that looks for publications within DataSite that have your award number in the acknowledgements or in the funding, and those will automatically be added into your project page. So it's updating in the things that we have access to automatically. But if you see that something hasn't come up because maybe that journal hasn't contributed, hasn't been searchable, then you can always go in and add things to your project page. Okay. So you searched for data, you wrote a proposal, you registered your project within the first year, and either on the same day that you do that or a year later, whenever you have a data set that you want to deposit to the USAP-DC for us to archive, that's when you go to the deposit data set button. Again, you're logged in. Again, this is either through your ORCID or your Google ID. A lot of the fields look the same as the project fields, but this page is specific to the data set. So this is what people will get to when they click on the link to the data set at the bottom of the project page. So you put your email and a title for this data set, an abstract for this one as well. So, you know, these are the gravity measurements for such and such, or these are the contents of the penguin stomachs. The awards are the same drop-down list that you saw for the projects, and this is where you get to tie your data set to a particular award. And you can add it to more than one award, because you might have seen that on the project pages, particularly with collaborative projects where everybody has a different award number. You can have multiple awards that go to a single project page. You can have multiple projects that each have the same data set attached to them, depending on how your collaborations go. But this is where you link the data set that you submit to us to the project page that you built at the USAP-DC. Here you have to add the publications yourself, because these are the ones that are specific to the data set. This is a great way of getting your more detailed methods linked together. So if people want to use the data, they'll see everything that you've already done with it. So it's great to have your publications on those pages. The science project here is large-scale science projects that will help things be searchable by those keywords. And again, the location is going to be some of the keywords that we use for the master database. Spatial bounds works in the same way, but this might be smaller because this is just one data set from your whole project. And then the temporal bounds you can just give when you were doing this measurement. So on the next page, this is where it really turns into do unto others. This is where you get to write the README. And we've stepped you through the different boxes of information that people need to know in order for your data to be useful to somebody without them having to call you on the phone and ask you what you did. So a description of the instruments that you used, a description of the procedures that you used and the processing that the data went through, and then the format of the data. Hopefully those will be in the files already, but this is another chance to make sure that that is written down. What are these columns? What are these units? How do I work this file? And if there are any caveats that you'd like to offer to go along with the data, then you get to write those in as well. This part is a checklist to make sure that the fundamental, what your grandma told you to do with the data set, is written down before you submit this. And then you can just you can navigate to the file from your own machine and upload it to us. That's for files that are under about 250 megabytes. If you have bigger files than that, you can contact us and just ask, where can I put this? We have some data sets that are those big, many gigabytes kinds of files, and we can just take them in through another path rather than having the slow pipe of loading through the web browser. The last part of the data submission is this release date. By default, it's going to be the day that you submit the data. So it becomes immediately available as soon as you submit it. But if you want to put a hold on it for as up to the time limit that you're allowed to by NSF, then there is that functionality here. So you can decide, I want this to come out at the end of the year, or once this paper is published, and it'll be published by. If you put the hold date in here, then the page will be made, but the data won't be downloadable until this day comes along. So that is possible. And then you have to agree and understand that by submitting these data, they will be posted online, they will be assigned a DOI. So while it's possible to make changes after the fact, we want data that are ready to publish to come in here. And then you press submit. And again, it goes through the curator process where we'll check that the file came over properly. It'll be automatically archived and built into that record system, and we'll check that the metadata is right, get back to you if anything is confusing or would be difficult for somebody else to use, and then it'll go through. So you'll have the dataset page from which people can download your dataset. It'll be linked into your project page, and your project page will be linked to the Antarctic master database, and you'll have the link that you can put in your final report for NSF. And the world will have a couple of different forums where they can find your data, because that's a really crucial element of this.